Okay, guys, before I even start talking, I have to say this has to be quite possibly the most difficult video I've ever had to make. And let me explain why. I never intended on making this video. I mean, top 10 highest roller coasters by elevation. It just sounds ridiculous, and I meant it as a joke for the community poll. When I make those polls, I usually have 3 ideas I'm actually intending on doing, and then I just have like 2 I just put in at random. But when the majority of you actually voted on this, I was like, dang it, how am I supposed to make this video? There is not exactly a database where I can look up a roller coaster's elevation, so I had to do everything manually, and by manually, I mean I had to consult the entire world and just kind of pick out parks one at a time. Seriously, I had to look at world elevation charts to see which areas were abnormally above sea level. Luckily, they were mountain ranges most of the time, but then I had to see if there was even a park in the area with a coaster that was operating. Then notice if the coaster is up high in the mountain or at the base, and if the coaster is at the base, I smash my head against the wall 10 times till I black out, because I realize I wasted my time for absolutely nothing, and then try again. Rinse and repeat this method 100 times for 7 hours, and you get a semi-decent list. What I'm trying to say is take my top 10 with a hefty grain, if not a pound of salt, because I guarantee you that I missed something because there was just so much ground to cover. I don't think I got to everything. I'd say my list is probably 75 or 85% accurate. And there were just some coasters I did not want to include. Like, you'd be surprised how many minor mics there were at the side of a mountain inside a pizzeria. Like, how am I supposed to describe these? I want to make the top 10 at least interesting. Oh, and sorry, one last disclaimer before I start. I'm only limiting it to 1 coaster per park. Because if I was truly trying to be as accurate as possible, I would just be telling you the lineup of 3 parks, and then just call it a day. Because inside a park, the altitude is going to be relatively the same, maybe differ by a few feet because there may be a hill somewhere in the park, who knows, but there's not going to be like a sudden 1,000-foot difference. Anyway, I'm done now, so without further delay, let's start the top 10. To begin, number 10 is going to be Cliffhanger at Glenwood Caverns Adventure Park. Elevation 6,808 feet. Adventure Park in Colorado, they have a lot to offer. Every attraction here is over the edge, figuratively and literally. Seriously, everything here likes to incorporate the view, the terrain, the surrounding area. One of their highlight and honestly most terrifying attractions is their swing ride, where you're just flinged over the edge and have no choice but to look down. This one ride would be worth going to the park alone, but no, they have a lot more. The Haunted Mine Drop, 3 roller coasters, involving an Alpine, Zero Family Coaster, and Cliffhanger. Now, Cliffhanger doesn't seem too exciting. After all, it's just an SNMC Hurricane, mainly consisting of turns in a downward helix. But just look at the striking view. It looks so stellar. The reason I picked Cliffhanger over the other 3 coasters at the park is because this one's situated slightly higher up the mountain, and if not for that, the coaster is 60 feet in height, which technically does add to its elevation. Compare that to Alpine Coaster, where it's just hugging the hillside and follows the terrain as it goes down the mountain. Either way, I do think Glenwood Caverns is an overlooked park in the States because I literally hear no one talking about this park. Okay, apology in advance. Yes, number 9 is another coaster from Colorado. Sorry, there's just a lot of coasters in the state I have to go through. I tried restricting it to 1 city or region because if I didn't, more than half the coasters would just be ones from Colorado, and I'm not doing that. Anyway, the coaster I'm referring to is Outlaw Mountain Coaster at Steamboat Resort with a whopping elevation of 6,903 feet. So yeah, we're getting pretty high up there. And here's a fun fact, this coaster has a chain lift of 2,600 feet, which is not that surprising because as we know mountain coasters, the chain lifts are notoriously long and drawn out. In fact, I'm just gonna fast forward through this. Keep going, keep going. Okay, we're there. When you reach the summit, you're only a mere 40 feet above the ground. Again, not that surprising because mountain coasters are terrain-based and just weave their way back to the bottom. And for that logic, I can't really say anything else about Outlaw. Mountain coasters are just generic, except for a few I'm gonna get to later. Trust me, these ones are a lot more noteworthy. Guys, I'm going to try and get through number 8 quickly because it's another mountain coaster. We're still in Colorado, and I want to move on from the state already. So the coaster in question is called Breathtaker. It's at Aspen Snowmass Ski Resort. The elevation is 7,963 feet. The mountain coaster, however, not that impressive. The top speed's only 28 miles an hour, and if you compare that to Outlaw just before, that one actually went 40 miles an hour. 28 isn't bad, it's just lacking when it comes to speed and thrills when you're just going across the terrain. Let's go down south past the border into Mexico, where we have one of the most obscure Six Flags parks, and by obscure I mean forgotten, because who really pays attention to Six Flags Mexico? I don't. They just don't have anything to catch my attention. Medusa, sure it looks fun, but I would never travel all the way down to Mexico just for that. But anyway, getting back on topic, the coaster I'm talking about in terms of elevation would be Superman El Ultimo Escape at 7,966 feet. The tallest coaster in Latin America at an actual height of 219 feet, 74.5 miles an hour with a 60-degree drop. Superman is a Morgan Hyper, a coaster I don't really have any opinion on. I've never ridden one of the Morgan Hypers in America, but I heard this one's supposed to be the best traditional one because it focuses more on G-force rather than just the repetitive airtime hills. Besides Medusa, I'm sure it's supposed to be one of the best coasters in Mexico because there's not much to compare it to. And while I'm on the topic of the country, I have to say there was also a lot of coasters I just couldn't include on the list. Just like Colorado, there were a bunch that didn't make the cut, or they were just not substantial. All of Mexico, it's at a very high sea level. 5,000 feet or above, usually. And it's ridiculous when most of the rides I found were Espionaux, and I have no idea if they're going to open, so I just couldn't include them. The best example I have of this was La Fuera Chapultepec Park, Mexico, where one of their coasters' highest elevation was 7,516 feet, but the park isn't open. I don't think it's gonna open after the entire Chimera incident, so I just couldn't have it on the top 10. From now on, every elevation is going to be over 8,000 feet. Starting off at number 6, Mountain Coaster at Snowbird Ski Resort, with an elevation of 8,100 feet. If you're wondering why it's such an even number, for this I had to kind of guesstimate, because I cannot find the exact point of where the car detached from the chain lift. I know it sounds stupid, but looking at Google Maps, I could not find anything through all those trees. Still, I think it's accurate. Doesn't really matter. Now, what's the quality of the mountain coaster? It seems standard. The exact length is only 2,100 feet, and if you judge it by the POV, it's really tame. Good thing it's on top of the mountains and inside a national forest. I don't remember the name of the forest, just look down below, because all you can do is relax, take a breather, and look at your surroundings. Oh wow, another mountain coaster in Colorado. Well, let's get this one over with. This one is Force Flyer at Vail Adventure Ridge. Elevation 8,140 feet. Just like the last mountain coaster, it's not that long, only 1,900 feet. The only difference between this and other mountain coasters, it starts from the top, goes to the bottom, and then take the chain lift back to the station. So you start off with a bang, enjoy the entire coaster, then afterwards you deal with the burden of taking a mountain coaster chain lift. You know, when the fun part's already over. Number 4 is going to be kind of a weird park. It's a place positioned in Colombia called Satiri Mágico. Out of their 3 coasters, the one I'm referring to is going to be Montaña Rusa. Elevation 8,376 feet. This one's just a classic aero corkscrew like the one you can see at Silverwood and Canopy Lake Park. The reason I chose this one is because it's the tallest coaster in the park. The elevation doesn't really change wherever you go. And the only other major coaster there is Double Loop, and that's 10 feet shorter than Montaña Rusa. Now why I'm saying this park is weird is because it's basically the equivalent of a Six Flags in Colombia. Their Ferris wheel is called Samsung Mobile Phones. I didn't even know Samsung was big in Colombia, and I'm not even sure if this brand deal is legitimate. I just have to take their word for it. And right next to their coaster Double Loop, they have an actual airplane that's sponsored by a Colombian airline company. Brand deals seem to be big in this tiny park. I guess it makes sense because they're not associated with any major chain or company, so they have to try and figure out how to make extra revenue. It's just hilarious they have an actual Ferris wheel named Samsung. Number 3, we are still in Colombia. This one's actually going to be an indoor coaster. Goes by the name Quantum at Mundo Adventure. Elevation 8,396 feet. Now this coaster, it's not really anything. Quantum's just a regular Zyklon Galaxy. Interesting thing, Quantum was originally an outdoor coaster. They built the show building around it to make it inside. In 2017, they added VR helmets on Quantum. I don't think they're there anymore because VR is dead on roller coasters. Besides that, I have nothing else to say about this ride. It's a regular Zyklon Galaxy, nothing to the layout. So, moving on. Number 2 is going to be the second to last mountain coaster on the list, and the final coaster at last from Colorado. This one's Inferno Mountain Coaster. It's at Purgatory Resort. with an elevation of 8,944 feet. This is more of the longer mountain coasters, over 4,000 feet long, 25 miles an hour, giving a nice extensive ride time. And with this being the last coaster from Colorado, you're probably wondering why nothing from Elitch Gardens made the list. It's because the highest elevation point from that park was only 5,190 feet, which is not even close to anything on the top 10. But now, we're done with the state, let's go to number 1. Switzerland, they had some cool alpine coasters, but unfortunately none of them were able to make the list, except ironically the one that has the record of being the tallest coaster by elevation, an astonishing 9,842.52 feet. And that is the exact stat from RCDB and what they claim the record to be. And this legendary ride is called Alpine Coaster at Glacier 3000. It has a total track length of 3,067 feet. But don't focus on the length. Pay attention to the setting, the landscape. If I had to describe Alpine Coaster, it would be something like this. As you begin to descend, notice the infinite beauty of the mountain range, unveiling only the peak of each mountain over the horizon. Remember this sight every time you turn until you finally reach the bottom. If I ever got to go to Switzerland one day, this would be top priority. But anyway, that's it for the top 10 highest roller coasters by elevation. If you are curious for what parks and coasters didn't exactly make it, here's a few I found during my research. Take a look at it if you want to. Lastly, like, comment, subscribe, everything to help me against the YouTube algorithm. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.